Hello everyone, Ripan here from Language Academy, and in this video we are going to discuss the third part of our reorders, which we were continuing with the most repeated reorders in the PTE exam. And let's start with the first question. In the previous two videos we covered the first 50, and now we are continuing from number 51. So the first question, Brazilian music, the first sentence says, they recorded whoever and whatever. So we'll first stop here, create a question on who are they recorded, and we have to find out who are they and what they recorded. Whoever and whatever seem to be interesting: piano carriers, cowboys, beggars, this, and all these types of people, and even children at play. Early in 1938, Mario de Andrade, the Municipal Secretary of Culture here, dispatched a 4-member folklore research mission to the northeastern hinterlands of Brazil on a similar mission. So here in this sentence, one we have is a time period in 1938. We have the name of the person, we have the designation of the person. Who was Mario? He was a Municipal Secretary of Culture. And what did he do in this 1938? He dispatched a 4-member folklore research mission to the northeastern hinterlands of Brazil on a similar mission. So they're talking about some similar mission, and we'll see if we have any other sentence which talks about a mission. But the Brazilian, so but is very important, means we have some kind of contrast. The Brazilian mission's collection ended up languishing in walls here. So the Brazilian missions means we are referring to some mission that we have talked about, and in the previous sentence only we talked about hinterlands of Brazil on a similar mission. So this was a mission in Brazil, and this is what we are referring to, the Brazilian missions, and we are talking about the ending of the mission. The intention was to record. Now intention is kind of when we want to say the aim or the purpose. What was the purpose or the aim of recording? The intention was to record as much music as possible, as quickly as possible, before encroaching influences like radio and cinema began transforming the region's distinctive culture. So here we are giving the main component is what was the intention. Now looking at all these sentences, there's only one sentence in which we don't have at least anything referencing back, which tells us that who are the people and what is the overall topic. So 2 will be our first sentence, and we started, this is the talk about 1938. This person, he made a 4-member folklore mission in Brazil. And then before we say that what did they do, we'll talk about what was the intention. So whenever we introduce something and then this is the mission, then we say this was the aim of the mission, and then we move on to what did the persons in the mission do. So this was the aim, and then we'll move on to what did they do about that mission. So they wanted to record so much of music. So what they did was they recorded whatever and whoever seemed to be interesting, and all types of things they recorded. And in the end, what was the end of the thing? But the collection ended up in walls here. So that means at the end, it wasn't fruitful. It somehow ended in a negative way. So that is why they said but here. But we can even get the answer from the word ended up, because collection will only come after they have collected the thing. So here in this sentence, they recorded all types of people and children, and whatever they recorded is referred to as collection. So the mission's collection ended up. So these would be the answers for the 51st question. And let's move ahead to number 52. So 52 is about hiring young people. And let's look at the first sentence. They are skeptical about young people's skills and their readiness for work. So we again have to find out who are they and what is the context. It's very important that when you read a sentence, we have to do 3 things actually. First, read a sentence till the full stop. You should never read the sentence in half. The first reading should always be a complete reading. The second thing after reading the sentence we have to do is to mark the hints, create questions, that what are the things which are incomplete and we need to find out in the following sentences. And third is, once you have done the hints, you have to tell yourself that, okay, in this sentence, they are majorly talking about this thing. Understanding the overall context of the sentence is very important for you to understand the background of the story which is going on. So here we read the first sentence and then we marked they are skeptical. So we created a question, who are skeptical? And now the third step, what is the sentence talking about? This is talking about young people's skills, and there means the young people's readiness for work. And skeptical means doubtful about whether they are actually skillful, whether they will be able to do this work or not. So they were doubtful. So who was doubtful is what we need to find out. Employers are often reluctant to hire young people, even though there are more than these many unemployed in this age group, and UK businesses are struggling to fill 1 in 5 vacancies because of skills shortages. So here we got the answer to they, who are doubtful. So here they said employers are reluctant to hire young people. Reluctant means not very ready to do something, then you're reluctant, hesitant. So employers are a bit reluctant to hire young people, even though there are lots of vacancies, is what the sentence is talking about. They can be surprised by the results. Now again, we have to find out they, who are they? And surprised by the results means they will talk about something to do and something that can give results. Till now, there's nothing is being done. So how can we get result out of it? But, so again a conjunction, very important, but a growing number of companies are setting up schemes to recruit young people. So this is a contrast. So contrast means in this sentence, they are saying to recruit young people, means in the previous sentence, they'll say they are not recruiting young people or they are not willing to do that. So all the questions are created, all the information has been understood. So now what is the first sentence? So you can see only one sentence in which we do not have any question created is number 2. That will be our first sentence. So first sentence was saying employers are hesitant to hire young people. Why are they hesitant? They are hesitant about their skills and their readiness for work. So they here refer to the employers. Then they say they can be surprised by results, cannot come before because nothing is being done. So here they said that they are skeptical about young people's skills and readiness for work, and then comes the contrast. But now the opposite is going to happen because companies are setting up schemes to recruit young people. So this was the contrast. In the previous sentence, they were doubtful about hiring them, but now they are setting up schemes to hire them. So that is the opposite information. And setting up schemes means this is some work being done. And when work will be done, only then the results will come. So sometimes the answers can be based on a chronological order. Results cannot be there unless and until something is performed. So that can be a hint that you have to talk about doing something, and only then you can talk about getting results out of that thing. And we're done with 52. Now we have 53, which says about eating habits. So this says researchers surveyed more than 2,000 young people about their eating habits in 1999. There should be a full stop here. So whenever the things are about researches, like we always do, that when we talk about researches, we should go in a chronological order. What was the research? What was done in the research? What did they find out? And what was the conclusion? This is how a research is performed. So here, let's see, they said researchers surveyed more than 2,000 young people about their eating habits. So this is what was the topic of research? They researched. Whom did they research? 2,000 young people. And why did they do the research? To study their eating habits. And when did they do the research? 1999. The researchers, led by Nicole Larson of University of this public school, found 2 dips. Now here we have the name of the person. There is the research led by this person of this university, name of the university as well. But we have found here. So found should tell you that normally what we do is whenever we have proper nouns, we put that sentence as the independent sentence or the first sentence, but there's no such fixed rule. At the end of the day, that is why it is recommended to read the complete sentence, because if you read half of the sentence, let's say you read the name of the person and name of the university, you'll straight away put that sentence to be the first sentence, whereas it will be going wrong. So the researchers led by this person of this university, they found 2 dips in the intake of fruits and vegetables during the teenage years. So this is what they found. And what was it? They found 2 dips. When they surveyed the same group, so they surveyed means obviously researchers surveyed the same group, means they've already talked about the group before. 5 years later, most of the teenagers were eating fewer fruits and vegetables. So this was what they found out. The first occurred in early adolescence when consumption went down by more than half serving. The second came in late adolescence and was about the same size as the first one. So we have to find out what are these first and second things. This is purely explanation. The first was this, the second was this. Means we first need to know what are these 2 things. So this tells us that the first sentence will be the very first one in which we give the information. Whom did they survey? When did they survey? And what was the topic of the survey? And then we'll say when they surveyed. They means the researchers surveyed the same group 5 years later. Most of the teenagers were eating fewer fruits and vegetables. And then this was first and second. So first we'll put what did they find there. The researchers found 2 dips. So these 2 dips have been explained. The first one and the second one. So these were the hints that you have. First you say 2 dips and then you say the first and the second. And here you first say that the researchers surveyed this in 1999 when they surveyed the same group, because this has to come, the same group means this group, 2000 young people, and they means the researchers. So that is why these 2 sentences come together. I hope it would be clear. So what we learned from this question is never read half sentences, never just look at, we have names and we should just put this as the first one, have to read the full sentence. Moving on to 54. Mayor-controlled districts have seen improved student achievement across all subjects and student groups. So what is the context? We are talking about mayor-controlled districts, districts in which we have the control of the mayor and have seen improved student achievement. So we are saying positive about it. What has improved in the districts which are controlled by mayors? So a positive thing. Mayoral control of schools can be effective. Now, out of first and second sentence, which one is more broader? The second one will be broader because it just says that it is effective. Now, when you explain how it is effective would be the first thing, that what is the effective thing here? The effective thing is it has seen improvement in student achievement across all subjects. So this is the explanation, while this is a general thing, just saying that it is good. Now, what is good? Describe what is good comes in the first one. So you can always, when you read your sentences, you can read 2 sentences at a time and then you can decide, okay, out of these 2, which one is more broader, and you can start categorizing them from the very beginning. In cities with lagging student achievement, getting more engagement from mayors on increasing their authority over schools could be part of the solution. Now, 2 things in this. We were first talking about districts. Now we're talking about cities. This will be a good point to discuss that which is more broader. Districts are bigger and then cities are narrower than that. And here we are talking about if we get more engagement from mayors, this could be part of the solution. Could be means you're talking about future. It is possible to have this as the solution. Moving to a mayor-led district can also help. That means this is the second positive thing. Also helps for innovation and advancement. This is the second positive thing. Also is very important. Means we have already talked about one positive thing. This is the second benefit that we can get. So out of all these things, the first sentence will be mayoral control of schools can be effective, because here we just talked about control of schools. We did not say it should be in district or it shouldn't be in cities. This sentence can accommodate both districts and cities into it. So this is the most broader one. Mayoral control of schools can be effective. The first benefit, it has seen improved student achievement all across all subjects and student groups. Also, it can spur innovation and advancement. So these were the 2 benefits, so they come together. So once we have finished talking about districts, then we'll move on to the narrower concept, which is cities. So in cities with lagging, doing this thing could be a part of the solution. So again, the broader and the narrower concept comes into play. Always look at all the sentences and which sentences are broader than the other ones. This will help you and put your sequence in order. And this is the answer to 54. The next question we have is number 55. This is animals' exploratory urge. This says all animals have a strong exploratory urge, but for some, it is more crucial than others. So here we are not talking about any one particular animal. We just say that all animals have a strong exploratory urge. It's fine even if we don't understand the meaning of what exactly do we mean by exploratory urge. There will be some other easy language words which will be used for our convenience. So they say all animals have this, but for some it is more crucial than others. So we are going to make a comparison between some animals with respect to other animals. If they have put all their efforts into the perfection of one survival attack, they do not bother so much with the general complexities of the world around them. So we have to find out they, most probably they will be talking about animals, but still we need to find out they have put all their efforts into the perfection of one survival trick. So survival trick means anything that they can do to survive. That means to live. They do not bother. So if they are having the survival trick, they do not bother so much with the complexities of the world. So they really don't care. Bother so much means they don't care about what is going on in the world around them. The non-specialists, however, so however means here we have the other type, because in the first sentence we got to know they're going to make a comparison between some and the other. So this says, however, the non-specialists. This tells us that the other type will be the specialists one. The non-specialists, however, the opportunities of the animal world can never afford to relax. So this side, the non-specialists, they cannot afford to relax. So if we just look at the sentences that we have till now read, the first one seemed a general sentence. In the second one, they said that they really don't care. That means they are relaxed. And the other side says they can never afford to relax. So long as the ant-eater had its ants and the koala bear had gummies, then they are satisfied and the living is easy. So this would be example because we were talking about animals and now we are talking about two particular animals, the koala bear and the ant-eaters. So this will be the example that if the ant-eater had its ants, the koala bear had gummies, they are satisfied, means they don't really care about anybody else. It depends on how specialized they have become during the course of evolution. So it depends means we are explaining some concept here, how specialized they have become. So we read non-specialists here, and here we are saying how specialized they have become. So looking at all these things, the first sentence is the most general one where we just talked about all the animals. So they say it depends. So this is kind of an explanation. And here we had a concept kind of thing, strong exploratory urge. So maybe the strong exploratory urge depends on how specialized they have become. They means the animals have become during the course of evolution. And then they say, here we have an example. So first, what is the example rule says that the example comes after the explanation. So here the example says that if the animals have their food, they don't really care about anything. They are satisfied in their life. So this is the example of this sentence where they said that if they have survival trick, they do not bother much. And the example of this is if the animal have its food, they are satisfied and the living is easy. So this is one type of animal. However, the other type of animal, the non-specialist one, they can never afford to relax. So we haven't been given any example about this. So we will put this in the end, and moreover, this is the contrast. So first we talk about the life is easy, they are satisfied, and then we'll say, however, the other side, they never relaxes. They never relax rather. So here we have applied example rule, that the example comes after explanation. So one pair is the explanation that the animals relax, and then the example that see if this koala bear had gum leaves, then it doesn't bother about anything else. So that is the example. And first one, because it talked about all the animals, and then we explained that concept further. It depends on how specialized they have become, means all the animals. And then we talked about one category and the other category. So this is number 55. And now we have 56, which is food manufacturers. And in food manufacturers, they say, it was a time when managers had to take a critical look at every aspect of the production process and make improvements where necessary. So it was a time means we have already talked about some time, and now we are referencing to that time and saying it was a time. When? So this is one reference to time. And what is the overall context? Managers had to take critical look at every aspect of the production process, and they have to make improvements, meaning they have to be careful about how production is going on, and they make improvements whenever it was required. In the late 1900s, so here we have a time period, maybe we are referencing to the same time here, but still we'll have to read. In the late 1900s, food manufacturers were challenged by the organic community to ensure they were using ingredients that had been produced in all natural, healthy ways. So in the late 1900s is a particular time period that in this time period, what happened is organic community people were concerned about food being produced in natural, healthy ways. Whether these systems have been maintained seems questionable. So these systems is the question. Which systems are we talking about? Have been maintained means we are talking about present tense. So this means that we were discussing about systems of the past, and now we are saying whether we have maintained these systems in the present seems questionable, particularly as contracts depend so heavily on efficiency and quick sales. Over the last half century, organic farming has become a driving force in the world's food market. So this is a very general statement about organic farming has become a driving force in the world's food market, a very, very broader and very general statement which introduces the topic that we are all discussing about organic farming. As a result, generally should come at the end, but still we'll have to read. Some people believe it is now time, now means present tense, to reassess many companies in terms of the standards they agreed to some years ago. So now means, as I said, present time. What do we have to do is we have to do a reassessment, which was done some years ago. So the context is about organic farming. So that will be our first sentence. Over the last half century, organic farming has become a driving force. Now, after that comes a story that where did it start from? So it says in the late 1900s, what happens is people became challenged, or the food manufacturers became challenged by people because they were concerned about natural, healthy ways of ingredients. And when we said in 1900s, then we'll refer to it was a time, because this is a time period that we talked about. So it was a time when they have to do this and that. Now we are left with this, whether these systems have been maintained is questionable. As a result, we have to reassess. So these systems means this production process and the improvements. So that is why it will be for whether these systems have been maintained. So we talked about every aspect of production process, and then they make improvements. So we don't know whether still now they do the same thing. It is questionable. And that is why, as a result, obviously means that is why. So because we don't know, so as a result, some people believe it is now present tense is the time that we need to reassess what the companies are doing, which was decided some years ago, because we were talking about a past story. So in this question, what was tricky was we first started that in the present tense, organic farming has become a driving force, that is present tense. But we then moved on to past, and then we again came to the present tense. But how we came to know about the story is going to go like this. When in this sentence you said, as a result, some people believe it is now time to reassess something which was agreed some years ago. This sentence was a clear hint that you are going to discuss something about the past, and then you say that now we have to reassess those things. So those things automatically means the past things. So if there will be too many tenses being used in a question, one of the sentences will definitely give us a hint that we have to switch over to past and present in that particular question, like in this one. Otherwise, clear hints about pairs in the late 1900s, and it was a time. I'll remark the things. So in the late 1900s, and it was a time to make one pair. And this to be your general statement because it is not referencing. As a result, as you know, generally comes at the end. So what is left in between is whether these systems. So you can just look at which sentence is talking about any system being followed, and you can put this with that, which was the system was only in this sentence that managers had to do all these things. So these were the systems being referred. And this is how we'll solve 56, and we'll move on to so this one talks about rugby. And this question says from outside Wales to. So TOO2 means like also. So outside Wales to means maybe we have talked about inside first. So to tells us this cannot be the first sentence, and it is the second part of something, like from inside this happens, from outside to this is the result, or this is the point. So from outside Wales to, it is the rugby that commonly defines the nation, with the sport providing both widespread interest and one of the few positive associations of outsiders' perception of Wales. Citizens commonly identify with their nation in the context of major sporting events. Imagining the nation is easier when there is a national team playing another nation. So the context, the first sentence gave us something about from outside the Wales also. Rugby defines the nation. The second sentence, the context is we are not talking about any game. Like in the first one, we were talking about a particular place, Wales, and we talked about a particular game, rugby. But in the second sentence, we are talking about major sporting events, not taking the name of any game. And we just say that citizens identify with their nation when there's a national team playing against another nation. So out of the first two sentences, the second one will be broader because it says all the sporting events, and this is only talking about rugby. In many ways, rugby in Wales defines what Wales is and what people in Wales share. So here again, we are talking about Wales, and here we are talking about inside of Wales, people in Wales share. Rugby in Wales is a particularly strong example of this phenomena, being perhaps the main thing that unites people in Wales. So rugby in Wales is an example of this phenomena. This is the sentence where we are introducing rugby. So the explanations to rugby will come after this sentence because this is where it is being introduced. So all other sentences talked about rugby means we only have one, which can come before that. So we say citizens identify themselves in context of major sporting events, and then rugby is one example of this phenomena. So then will come three, people in Wales is this thing, and then from outside Wales to, it is rugby that commonly defines the nation. So in here we can see two played an important role, and otherwise example played a very important role. So we need to know that how things are introduced before we actually describe or explain them. like we do in the questions like broader sentences like district will come before city. That is one way of arranging. The second way of arranging is to find out which sentence is introducing something and which sentence is further explaining that part. So always the introduction comes first and the explanation comes later on. So here, like, we'll first introduce rugby's example of this phenomena, and then we'll further explain what is rugby and where it is and how people see it. So this would be 57. Next, we have 58 is Monash student. So this one says, now in her third year of study, the Monash Abroad program will see her complete 4 units of study in the US before returning to Australia in May 2009. So this some clear hints. Now means presently. In her third year, we have to find out what is the name of this girl. Third year of study, the Monash Abroad program will see her. So this is going to happen this year. Mechanical engineering student Ni Tan. So N and T capital tells us that this is the name of the person. The student Ni Tan is spending the first semester of this year studying at the University of California as part of the Monash Abroad program. So here we get information about the student we were talking about in the previous sentence. Her name is Ni Tan. She's studying mechanical engineering and in the University of California as a part of Monash Abroad program. So obviously the second one sentence has to come before the first one because this is referencing her here. There she completed a diploma that enabled her to enter Monash University as a second year student. So there means we will talk about the place where she completed a diploma that enabled her to enter Monash University as a second year student. So completed is past tense. Somewhere she completed a diploma and then entered Monash University. Ni and in the bracket tan means that this is not the first sentence. So if the name is in the bracket, that means it is the second time it has been referenced to, because once we have ni tan without bracket means this is where they wanted to introduce the person. This is where they're referencing. So Ni Tan, an international student from Shanghai, China, began her Monash journey at Monash College in October 2006. This is past tense. This is reference. Now this tells us that what will be our first sentence? Only one sentence which is not having any question mark. Now here also we'll say this is a reference. As I said, in the bracket means it is referencing to that full name. So only one sentence which does not have any question. Mechanical engineering student Ni Tan is spending the first semester of this year studying at the University of California as part of Monash Abroad program. And then 2 sentences of the past. And here we reference, we'll say this is the second one. Ni Tan, an international student, began past tense her journey in October 2006. There she completed. There means in the Monash College, past tense, she had completed a diploma which enabled her to enter Monash University as a second year student. So first, second year will come. She entered as second year, and then only we'll say now in her third year. Sorry, this will be the fourth sentence. So first, second year will finish. She entered as second year student, and only then we'll say now in her third year. So that is why this comes after in the end. Now in her third year, she will be doing these things. So again, complex tenses being used, starting from the present, going back to the past, and then talking about future. And how do we come to know about this? So here, if we mark it again, this now played a very important role. Third year, second year, past tense, began October 2006, completed, and will do these things. So there are questions based on tenses. So it again matters the same that if you will read the complete sentences. Only then you will get to know these small hints, as they are important to get your sequence correct again. And let's move on to the next one, number 59. The name of the question is Gene Briggs. Because they can't be reasoned with or don't understand, parents treat them with a great deal of tolerance and leniency. We don't know, though we can understand. Parents treat them obviously means they will be children of those parents, but we don't know till now. Parents treat them with tolerance and leniency. Young children don't possess these qualities. So here we have, who are they? Young children. Don't possess these qualities means you have to find out the names of some qualities first of all, and are easily angered, cry frequently, and are incapable of understanding the external difficulties facing the community, such as shortages of food. So here we say young children don't have certain type of qualities. It is only when they are older and begin to acquire thought that parents attempt to teach them or discipline them. It is only when they are older. That means before this statement, they were younger, or they are younger. That is why we are saying that when they will be older, or when they become older, parents try to discipline them. So before this sentence, we have to talk about the younger side of the story. So Gene Briggs has worked with the Inuit of Canadian Arctic and has described how within these communities, growing up is largely seen as a process of acquiring thought, reason, and understanding. So here we have what is the whole context. Who are they people that we're talking about. So Gene Briggs is one person who has worked and described how in a particular community acquiring thought, reason, and understanding is a process. So this will be the first sentence. This is a complete statement, independent one. And now we have in one sentence, we have young children. One sentence, we have they. Here also we have they. So before they, we have to refer to who are they. We have to give the noun or the pronoun or the subject. So we'll put young children before saying they. Young children don't possess these qualities. These qualities means the qualities which we talked about here. Acquiring thought, reason, and understanding. These qualities, understanding the reason and having a thought process, they are not in young children. That is why they do such things. And then we say, it is only when they are older, parents try to discipline them. And because they can't understand, parents treat them with tolerance and leniency. So obviously first, when they are young, so they say because they cannot understand or they don't understand, parents treat them with leniency first. And it is only means after that, when they become older, when they are grown-ups, then they try to discipline them. So only played a very important role here. It is only when you have highlighted a previous situation where you do not do the thing which you are doing after only. So we say like children cannot take their decisions till the age of 10. It is only when they step in the teenage, or let's say before teenage, it is only when they step into teenage that they can take their own decisions. So only comes when you want to say that it cannot be done before. So that is why this thing came first, that they teach them with tolerance, leniency, and only when they grow up, then they try to be strict or they try to discipline them. So in this question, young children, they, only, and they were important. And obviously, yes, these qualities which we talked about here. So after reading the sentences, if you were able to mark these hints, obviously that will help you to put the sequence together. And next we have is number 60th, opinion compromise. So in here also they say they and probably you, so again we have to find out, have to be persuaded and helped to feel comfortable about the outcome that is eventually agreed. The question has been done. Who are they? Now comes the context part. They and you have to be persuaded and helped to feel comfortable about the outcome that is agreed. Means we are talking about persuaded means like pushed, motivated, feel comfortable about something which is agreed. The reason is that, so we have to find out why are we giving the reason or for what are we giving the reason. The reason is that achieving agreement requires people to accept the reality of views different from their own and to accept change or compromise. So we have to find out why we are giving the reason and what is the reason. The reason is achieving agreement. To achieve the agreement, what we need to do is we have to accept the reality of views which are different from our own, and we have to sometimes make a compromise also. It is not just a matter of putting forward a set of facts and expecting the other person immediately to accept the logic of the exposition. It is not just a matter of, means it's not just this, it's something very big. This is the writing style. So it's not very small thing. It actually has a lot of other elements into it. So that is how they'll proceed. In general, there is a tendency to underestimate how long it takes to discuss and resolve an issue on which two people initially have different views. So in general means this is the concept we are talking, that when two people are having different views about anything, so how long it takes for them to solve that part. For example, people have different views on political agendas or political parties, and then they just keep on arguing and arguing. So this is about how long it takes to discuss and resolve an issue on which they have different views. People need time to make this adjustment in attitude and react badly to any attempt to rush them into an argument. So people need time to make this adjustment. So which adjustment are we talking about? So these are the questions here. So again, all the questions are all the sentences are referencing to something except for one which says in general. We underestimate that how long it can take to solve a contrasting opinion, or when two people have different views. So this is what we're going to talk about. And then why do we underestimate this thing? We say generally we underestimate. The reason for underestimating, for not exactly understanding the time, because achieving agreement requires people to accept the reality of views different from their own and to accept change or compromise. So the reason is because they have to accept what the other person says. They have to change their mind, or sometimes they have to make a compromise on their own thinking. So this is the reason why we underestimate that how long it can take. And then they say it is not just a matter of putting forward a set of facts. So once we are given the reason, now we are giving what all things go into it. So it is not just that you have to just say your side and the other person will accept it. So it's not just putting forward a set of facts and expecting the other person immediately to accept. So we cannot just do, okay, I believe this party will win and the other person will immediately accept. It is not possible. So immediately means we're talking about time. Immediately it cannot happen. And after that, we say that why immediately it cannot happen? Because they or you, that means any side of any party to the agreement, have to be persuaded. You have to convince them, help them to feel comfortable about what the outcome is. And or in doing this persuasion and to help them feel comfortable, people need time to make this adjustment. This adjustment means to get convinced, to change their attitude. So people need time to make this adjustment in attitude and react badly to any attempt to rush them into an agreement. So this was a bit of an understanding question. This was based on how things proceed in a general discussion. So in general came first, that generally we underestimate. Why do we underestimate? The reason for underestimating is this. And then the further explanation, two things. Nobody can immediately accept. We have to convince the people. And in this convincing, it takes time. So once we understand, now it seems easy that what were the hints. It was based on a general understanding that we have to convince, and convincing takes time. Before that, people cannot immediately accept. You have to convince them. So these words were very important here, which are now marked. What we understand from this question is sometimes the languages or the questions can be a very what is called profound, understanding of concepts, not a very general story that we can understand. So in these kinds of questions, find out certain words which can help you to arrange a chronological order. That immediately we cannot do it. Why? Because we need time, and we need time in doing what will come in between. So these words can help. And the next one, 61st question, which is about Arctic environment. So this one says, the response of the Arctic to climate change will have an unprecedented impact on how the Arctic ecosystem operates. So here we are talking about response of the Arctic to climate change. Response means how will Arctic react to the changes in the climate. Will have means this is about future. This is still yet to happen. The response of the Arctic to climate change will have unprecedented impact on how the Arctic ecosystem operates. With the Arctic, the fastest warming region on the planet, climate change is already altering key components of the Arctic environment. Sorry. So in this sentence, we are introducing Arctic. With the Arctic, we have given introduction. What is Arctic, or what is happening in the Arctic? Arctic, which is the fastest warming region on the planet, climate change is already altering its key components. Altering is used when you want to say negatively affecting. Then you say altering, negatively changing. This is likely to affect the UK's climate and economy. So here you talking about UK. Before this sentence, we were talking about climate change, Arctic's ecosystem. Climate change, Arctic's ecosystem are very broad terms compared to just talking about one UK. So UK's climate and economy with anticipated impacts on industries like tourism and fisheries. So anticipated means forecasted about the future. So it can impact tourism and fisheries of UK. Some of the clearest signs of change are the thinning and retreat of the sea ice and the migration of species into the Arctic that normally live at lower latitudes. Examples. Some of the clearest signs of change, some of the clear examples of climate change are these things. So example will come after the explanation of the rule. So first sentence will be the one in which we are introducing Arctic. Arctic is the fastest warming region on the planet. And in the Arctic, climate change is already having negative consequences or negative changes. Now, what here we said altering key components of the Arctic environment. Examples of those alterations. What is happening? Thinning and retreat of the sea ice. This is alteration. This is the change. Migration of species into the Arctic, the second change. So this is the pair based on giving examples of what you just said. So you said there are changes, and these are some of the examples of these changes. Now, how will we have two sentences? One talks about UK and one talks about the whole Arctic. So obviously we'll finish Arctic because it is much broader. Then we'll talk about UK. Obviously it is narrower than the Arctic. So we say the response of the Arctic to climate change will have unprecedented impact on how Arctic ecosystem works. And this whole thing in the happening in the Arctic is likely to affect the UK's climate and economy, a very, very narrow term than discussing the Arctic ecosystem. So these would be the pairs. Next we have is Great Western Railway. The first one says, while the west side's view wasn't quite so impressive, the engineers generously chalked that up to centuries of dirt and grain. So while means two things contrasting or two things happening at the same time. So we'll have to understand, but definitely it means that there's another side to the story. So here we are saying while the west side's view, maybe we have talked about some east, north, south side of view before this. So now we are saying the east side was good while the west is not so impressive. So this again gives us another way of solving. Try to create questions in general language whenever you have some kind of connectors, like how do we use while? So you can create a sentence for yourself and that will tell you that while is used when you're making a comparison. That means you'll say the east side was good while the west was not impressive. So means we have to discuss another side before this sentence. Railway in the 1840s intrigue has swirled around the Box Tunnel, a long, steep bypass near Bath, England. Complete sentence, first of all. And what are we talking about? We're talking about railway, a time period, 1840s. There is a long, steep bypass tunnel, the Box Tunnel, name of something. What is the Box Tunnel? It is a long, steep bypass. It is in England. So it's complete, the most important thing. This past Sunday, April 9th, the railway's current engineers decided to test the rumor once and for all. They weren't disappointed. So one day, the engineers decided to test the rumor. So the rumor means they have already talked about what was the rumor. Rumor would be like news that has spread about some particular thing which is not known to be true or not. So that's a rumor going on. They wanted to test the rumor. The question was this: did the railway's creator, 𝗂𝗵𝘁𝗃𝗵𝗃 really have the tunnel carved in such a way that when the sun rose on his birthday, April 9th, it would be flooded with light? So this is the question. The question was this, that this person, they were doubtful that whether the tunnel was actually made a way that on the birthday of this person, the tunnel will have a lot of light into it. So they wanted to test this thing maybe. When you look from the east portal, so here we got the other side of the west. When you look from east portal, the cutting provides a lovely V-shaped communications. Communication manager Paul Gentleman told the Guardian. So this is the east side's look. This is the west side's look. Where are we looking into? We are looking into a tunnel. And why are we looking into? To test a rumor. So this is all the context that we have. The first sentence will be two, in which we are saying that there's a tunnel, long, steep bypass near England. The question was this, that this is going to happen, that on the birthday the tunnel will be filled with light or not. So this past Sunday, the engineers decided to test the rumor once and for all. The rumor means this thing, the question. Because rumor, as I said, is a question for which we don't have any answer, a news which we don't know whether it's true or false. So that is why this was the question which was not known, and this is being referred to as the rumor. So decided to test. Now, when they tested, what did they see? First will be from the east side, it provides something and something, while the west was not so impressive. So here they use the word, the east side provides a lovely view. So while the west wasn't quite so impressive. So this would be the contrast. That is why while is being used there. I hope this would be helpful. And the next one. Number 63, heart attack. Heart attack is caused by the sudden blockage of coronary artery by a blood clot. So a complete sentence, kind of how is it caused? When the clot is formed, it will stay in the blood vessel. So here we're talking about formation. A blood clot, the clot is formed. Without the normal blood flow, it will cause muscle contraction. So without normal blood flow, this will happen. The clot in blood vessels will block blood flow. Kind of short and easy. So first we'll say how it is caused when there is one blood clot. And first we'll talk about formation. When the clot is formed, it will stay in the blood vessels. And what will it do? It will block the blood flow. And then we say without the normal blood flow, because when it is blocked, it won't be the normal one. It will become abnormal. So without the normal blood flow, it will cause muscle contraction. So this is, it was based on just the word. Without the normal means first something will happen to the blood flow, only then it will become abnormal. So the blockage causes it to be flow normally. The next one is unfinished highway. So unfinished highway number 64 here. It makes an edgy backdrop for TV commercials and fashion shoots and looms over an episode of the science fiction series Black Mirror. So what is it? Backdrop for TV commercials and fashion shoots. So backdrop is the background in front of which they shoot the advertisements or some fashion things. And looms over an episode of the science fiction series Black Mirror. Also one episode is shot in front of that backdrop of some series. So we have to find out what is the backdrop here. Between the ocean and the mountain, there's the unfinished highway. The ocean and the mountain, there is the unfinished highway. Complete sentence, but let's find out if something more broader is given. 4 decades later, so we have to talk about some time period before saying 4 decades later, because if I now say 4 decades later, you will not get to know which year. And if I say in 1950s this happened and 4 decades later, then you can count 40 years after that and you'll understand which year we are talking about. So whenever this type of information is given, before that you have to talk about some time or year first of all. So 4 decades later means we have to talk about the time before. The hulking slabs of concrete still end in precipitous drops. So still is very important. Still means you have already talked about that thing and now you are saying that still it is in the same situation. It is an odd looking landmark in a beautiful city. Sections of elevated road left suspended in mid-air when construction stopped in the 1970s. This is the explanation. It is an odd looking landmark in a beautiful city. So it is means we first have introduced and now we are explaining what is it. A glossy brochure of Cape Town film locations proclaims the cut-off highway. So we are referencing to the highway. Truly special with great city views. And this is done by film locations. So marking all this and now going to what is the first sentence? So first sentence is the one in which we introduced the topic. We said between the ocean and the mountain, there is the unfinished highway. Then we explained what does it look like or what exactly it is. It is an odd looking landmark in a beautiful city. Sections of elevated road left suspended in mid-air, when construction stopped in the 1970s. Now, as I said, when you mention about a time period, then we say 4 decades later. So that will make a pair in 1970s and then relating it to 4 decades later. The hulking slabs of concrete still end in precipitous drops. Now we have 2 sentences left. One is A glossy brochure of Cape Town film locations proclaims the cut-off highway truly special. And one, we have the uses. So we, in all the sentences, were talking about how it looks, how it looks. So first we'll complete the looks thing, that, and moreover talking about just TV commercials and saying the Cape Town film locations proclaims the cut-off highway is very special and it gives great city views. So this will be more broader, and then we'll narrow down to how it is or what for it is used nowadays. So it is used as an edgy backdrop for TV commercial and fashion shoots, will be narrower than brochure of Cape Town film locations, because it is still just describing the highway, like the other sentences, and the last one will be what is the current use of that highway. So that will be the answer. And now we are moving on to 65, which is about snakes. So this says, we arrived around lunchtime, and as soon as I crawled under, I could immediately see that there was far more than a few, the post said. So we arrived, question mark, who arrived? And then the post said. So to find out who is this post or what is this post. He saw a few snakes and quickly crawled out, said a post on Big Country Snake Removal's Facebook page. So he saw a few snakes. So who saw the snakes? And here we said the post, and here we have a post. So acronym rules, article rule says a comes before the. The company ended up removing 45 rattlesnakes from beneath the house. So this can be the end of the story. Big Country Snake Removal responded to a home in Albany, Texas, after a man who was trying to restore his cable climbed under the house and saw some snakes. So this will be the first sentence, which introduces that who are these people talking about. So a person while trying to restore his cable, climbed into the house and he saw some snakes there. So then will come, he saw a few snakes and quickly crawled out, said a post, and then the post, we arrived, and we see, I immediately see that there were far more than a few. So he said there are few, but when he actually saw, there were more than a few. And in the end, how many were exactly? There were 45 rattlesnakes in the end were removed from the house. Article rule, and the, very important. And otherwise ended up means this will be the wound up of the story. And because it was a continuous story kind of thing, so you can have a bit of imagination reading these sentences. And let's see what is next for us. 66, carbon detox. This says we should emphasize the old-fashioned virtues of uniting in the face of a crisis, of resourcefulness and community action. Kind of a very general suggestion. When should we give suggestions? To a great extent, suggestions come at the end. If there is some kind of a story going on, and then in the end we give a suggestion that what we learn or kind of a moral to that story. Not always, but if it is a story kind of thing, then. So we should do these things, kind of a suggestion. So we'll see what lies in the other sentences. In his fascinating book, Carbon Detox, George Marshall argues that people are not persuaded by information. Complete sentence, we have the name of the book, we have the name of the person, and what is the topic in the book, what is being discussed, that people are not persuaded, means not convinced by information. Of the narratives, plural, that might penetrate these circles, we are more likely to listen to those which offer us some reward. Even if we don't understand this first part of the narratives that might penetrate these circles, we are more likely to listen to those who offer us some reward, is what we understand. That we listen to those who give us some kind of reward. Reward here doesn't necessarily mean a kind of a trophy or certificate. Reward would be like something which actually interests you. Our views are formed by the views of the people with whom we mix. So we at least understand that they are talking about how are our views formed by the views of the people with whom we mix, means with people with whom we talk about, we go out and we spend our time. So that influence how we think. He proposes, name of the person should be, that instead of arguing for sacrifice, environmentalists should show where the rewards might lie. So the rewards, you already talked about rewards. Where the rewards might lie, that understanding what the science is saying and planning accordingly is a smart thing to do, which will protect your interests more effectively than flinging abuse at scientists. So the first sentence obviously would be that what is the topic? So this says, in his fascinating book, Carbon Detox, George Marshall argues that people are not persuaded by information. This is what is the topic. Now, if we say people are not convinced by this thing, the next sentence can be how they are actually convinced, which was given in number 4. So we say they are not convinced by information. Our views are formed by the views of the people with whom we mix. So this is how we trust, or this is how we form our opinions, not by just information. And then when we say that our views are formed by the views of the people with whom we mix, we say, and out of all those people, we listen more to those. So we generally say that our views are formed by the people we mix, and out of all those people, more we listen to those which offer us some reward, means which interest us, which give us some kind of satisfaction in return, that yes, this person is talking just like me, or it has the same interest, so which offer us some reward. And these rewards are being referred to in this sentence where we say where the rewards lie. So the rewards means the rewards which we just talked about. Now we are saying where the rewards lie. And since this was a story about a one book, what was the topic in one book, and in the end comes the suggestion that we should emphasize the old-fashioned virtues of uniting in the face of a crisis. It actually related to this where it ended. Planning accordingly is the smart thing to do, and what we should think and how we should plan is on the old-fashioned virtues, like whenever there is a crisis, we should all come together and focus or emphasize on community action rather than individual action. These were some of the things they are giving suggestions about. So this is how it came. '67, just in time. This says, the Japanese are very efficient, and such concepts as just in time are a witness to their efficiency. So seems like a complete sentence. Japanese are efficient people, and such concepts as just in time are a proof, witness to their efficiency. So we're talking about Japanese, we're talking about efficiency. They reach efficiency through the root of effectiveness. So we are giving the root of their efficiency through effectiveness. But they reach efficiency in a different way than American businesses. But is important. Two sentences are talking about reaching efficiency. They reach efficiency through this. They reach efficiency in a way different than American business, which is broader. So this one will be broader because this doesn't answer. This still introduces that they reach efficiency in a way which is different from American businesses. And then they talk about what exactly is the way. So first just saying a way which is different, and then mentioning the name of the way, which is root of effectiveness, will come. Main difference is that efficiency is a ration and effectiveness is not. So this will only come first. We have talked about both efficiency and effectiveness. Then we can find out the difference between the two things. The first sentence will be the very first one. Japanese are efficient people. but their way of efficiency is different from Americans. And what is their way? Their way is through the route of effectiveness. And finally, we have talked about both effectiveness and efficiency, and then we'll see the main difference is that efficiency is this and effectiveness is not this. So this is again general sentence, broader sentence and narrower. So first saying that their way is different, and then saying what exactly is their way. So let's move on to the next one, 68, nomadic hunter-gatherers. But stored food is essential for feeding non-food producing specialists and certainly for supporting the whole towns of them. So, but stored food is essential means maybe we have previously said that storing food is not important, or we have said that we cannot store food, but it is essential to do that. So contrast should come before this sentence. So this is important. For stored food is essential for, so we are writing the reason why it is important, which is including some non-food producing specialists and then supporting the towns. So while some nomadic hunter-gatherers may occasionally bag more food than they can consume in a few days, such a bonanza is of little use to them because they cannot protect it. Generally, what happens when you read the words like so as a result, we say that okay, it will come at the end, but always keep benefit of doubt for yourself. It cannot always happen. So obviously something should come before that. So what happens because of that previous thing is some hunter-gatherers, they bag more food than they can consume in few days. Such a bonanza is of little use because they cannot protect it. So they get more food, but they cannot protect it. And who are they? Nomadic hunter-gatherers. Hence, nomadic hunter-gatherer societies have few or no such full-time specialists. Such full-time specialists, so some kind of specialists we have talked before, and now we are referencing to them, who instead first appear in sedentary societies. So hence, and such specialists. A separate consequence of a settled existence is that it permits one to store food surpluses, since storage would be pointless if one didn't remain nearby to guard the stored food. So, meaningful sentence that settled existence means like living in permanent houses. Result of living in permanent houses is that we can store food, surpluses, extra food we can store. Because if there is no house, we cannot store food because we cannot stay there to guard or protect that food. So this is what the first sentence is talking about. The previous sentences were talking about nomadic hunter-gatherers. And this sentence is talking about settled existence. And it is introducing that if you are not settled, then you cannot protect the food, cannot guard the food. So this will be the first one because this is introducing the other side of the story, which is if you are not there means you are nomadic hunter-gatherer. So they say settled existence is that permits one to store food surpluses, since storage would be pointless if one didn't remain nearby to guard the stored food. This is one thing. And because of this thing, so that if you are not permanently settled, you cannot store food. And that is why. So nomadic hunter-gatherers very occasionally bag more food than they can consume because they cannot protect it, which was the thing mentioned in the previous sentence. So because they cannot protect it, which was the same thing, didn't remain nearby to guard the food. So both the sentences are talking about the same context. And then it says, but, so here we talked about non-food producing specialists, and then we are referencing to such full-time specialists. So yes, meaning also is there, but we have to focus more on the hint. So this I'm telling you first. Such means we are referencing to specialists. So specialists will come before and then we'll refer to them. Otherwise, but was also important. So they said that they don't store food because they cannot protect it, but stored food is essential. That is how but comes here, and then you are referencing to in the end, then hence, that is why this is the whole thing which goes on. So focus more on the pairs, on the references. So such was a very important word here. And next we have is 69, Grenada. So this says, in 1979, Grenada witnessed the establishment of a socialist government by Maurice Bishop, which survived 4 years of US engineered incursions. A complete sentence, no reference has been used, and these are some of the things I have marked for context. We are talking about a particular year. Grenada is capital G. No, not very easy to understand whether it's the name of a person or a place, but let's see if we get a hint in the following sentences. But yes, we are talking about one socialist government by a person which survived 4 years. This was duly appreciated, with some 7,000 US servicemen being designated as heroes and given decorations. So this was appreciated means they would have done something and then they were considered heroes for that. And who are they? 7,000 US servicemen. So they have done something and then they say this was duly appreciated, their work or their duty, something. This government, yes, we have talked about one government before, so this can be one pair. This government was overthrown in an internal power struggle among left-wing groups, and within 3 weeks of Bishop's Austrian assassination, region launched Operation Urgent Fury against Grenada, claiming that the invasion was forced on us by events that have no precedent in the Eastern Caribbean. Okay, very difficult. Very long sentence. Let's first look if we have hints. In the end, so if it is a story, this can come at the end. In the end, Grenada, just like Cuba and this place, was no more than Chomskyan threat of a good example to other third world countries in the region. So this would be a place. So in the end, this was just like an example to other countries. Around 2,000 US Marines fought for a week, destroying a mental hospital, killing 84 Cubans, building an airstrip, and 400 Grenadians. So 2,000 Marines fought for a week, obviously means these would be the people. They fought for a week and they destroyed these things. So we had a sentence which talked about US servicemen who were appreciated for their duties. So which would be the first sentence? Would be the first one, because here we have the complete information that in 1979 a government was established, and then just making a link with a government, we will say this government in number 2, a socialist government and this government. And then we have some servicemen were appreciated. So first they have to do something, those servicemen. So what we'll do first is, first they will fight, and then they will be given medals. They will be considered heroes if they had won the fight. So they have destroyed so many things. So they were considered heroes. And what happened in the end? Grenada was just left as a good example to other third world countries. So these were the hints for which you have to focus on and get, and that will make your sequence correct. So a government and this government. First, the US people will fight, and then they will be considered heroes. They will be given decorations, would be medals or badges or stars on their uniforms. And in the end, what happened was this. So let's move on to number 70. It turns out that those horses are actually feral descendants of the first horses that humans are known to have domesticated around 5,500 years ago. Those horses, we don't know which horses. It turns out also means that this cannot be the first sentence, because it is telling us that it was found out something. We are talking about horses. Descendants means the next generations of first horses that humans have domesticated, and we have a time period, always very important. These are startling conclusions of a new genetic study. So these means so many are the conclusions of one study published in Journal Science, which challenges long-held assumptions about the entwined history of horses and humanity. So conclusions means, and these tells us there would be more than one. What's more? So what's more is just like furthermore and moreover when you're giving one additional point on something. So this also tells us that we have to first give a point, and only then we'll say the second point. The modern horses that people ride today cannot be traced to those early states. So those early means the previous ones. A Mongolian horse that has long been hailed as the last truly wild horse species in existence isn't really all that wild. So here we have the name of a horse, and we are saying we thought that this is the last wild horse species, but it is really not that wild. Complete sentence, most importantly. That means humans. So that means again means that we have already talked about something. Humans must have tamed wild horses once again later on somewhere else, but no one knows where or when. So that means that a story has already been built up, and we are now taking out the inference or the kind of conclusion of the story. So these would be the hints. So what would be the first one would be fourth, because that's the only sentence which is a complete one. So here goes the first one. So a Mongolian horse that has long been hailed is not really that wild. After that, we have one sentence saying these are the conclusions. What's more cannot come. That means cannot come. So what will come is it turns out. At least we should first say something. It turns out means this has been found that those horses are actually feral descendants of the first horses that humans have known to have domesticated these many years ago. This is one thing that we have found out. The second thing that we have found out, what's more. So it turns out means this is what we have found out. What's more, furthermore, modern horses that people ride today cannot be traced to those early. Those early means these ones. 55 years ago has been referred to as those early ones. This was the reference here. Then first we'll have that means. So first we'll say what is these two findings mean what? These two findings mean that there is one more generation in between that no one knows about. And all these things that we have found are the startling conclusions of one genetic study that was published in some journal. So also talking about the study in between won't make sense because no other sentence is talking about any general or any study, any genetic study or any journal of science. So that is why it comes at the end. And moreover, the beginning of the sentence, these are the conclusions, means we have to first finish about all the things that we have found out, and then we'll say. So this was based on pronouns, these, that means. What's more means another fact. So what we were left were with, we have to start about, it turns about. We find this, we also find this. The meaning of these two findings are these, and all of these are the conclusions of a study. Now we have 71. World population. There is no reason to believe that this space will slacken. This space means we have talked about some speed of something happening, and slacken means like fall or reduce. So we have to find out which pace. The world population goes up by 2% a year. City population goes up by 4% a year. But in big cities, the rate may be as such as 5 or 6% a year. So a lot of data is being given, and we have to find out why are we giving this data. After millennia of growth so far, that so slow that each generation hardly notices it, the cities are suddenly racing off in every direction. This is at least telling us that the explanation about that for so many years the growth was very slow, but now the cities are racing off, means they're very fast growing. To give only one example of almost visible acceleration, Athens today grows by 3 dwellings and 100 square meters of road every hour. So example rule will apply. Example comes after explanation. And Athens is not a country. This is something to keep in mind. The first sentence will be after millennia of growth, slow, now it is racing. The growth now will obviously talk about the growth of the world first, then give the example of one city. So world will be broader than one city. So first we'll start with the world population goes up by this, city population goes up by this, but in big cities it is more than 5 or 6%. And then we give one example of that big city. We say to give only one example, this city today grows by this and this and this. And there is no reason to believe that this space means these growths that we have talked about. The population growth, the city growth, this is not going to reduce. There's no reason that we can believe this will slow down in the future. So this was the reference to this space means the two sentences that we have given before. So let's move on to 72. Japanese girl. This says Yugiso also attended public kindergarten of 2 hours every day. So also attended means this is a secondary thing we are talking about. And if somebody is attending a school means this would be a human being. Japanese girl, but that won't be the case in the exam. So a human being also attended public kindergarten of 2 hours every day and later elementary school, but with no tutoring in English syntax. Most of her neighborhood friends were in her same class at school. The data to be reported here come from a longitudinal study of the untutored acquisition of English as a second language by a 5-year-old Japanese girl whom we call Ugiso, Nightingale of Japanese. This is where we are introducing the girl. We are introducing how old is she. She belonged to Japan, Japanese girl, and this is the name and what is she called. So this would be the introduction. The children in that neighborhood, so that neighborhood means which neighborhood? We have already talked about the neighborhood, were her primary source of language. Primary means first source from where she learned language. Her family came to the United States, so her means where we were introducing the person. Her family came to the US for a period of 2 years while her father was a visiting scholar at Harvard. And they took residence in North Cambridge, a working class neighborhood. Okay, a neighborhood. So these are all the hints that we should be marking, and then we will look at the first sentence will be the introduction sentence where we said 5-year-old Japanese girl, the name is Ugiso and Nightingale in Japanese. And still introduction going on, explaining that she came with her family, her father was this, and they lived in North Cambridge, which was a working class neighborhood. Then we'll say that neighborhood, referencing to a working class neighborhood, saying that neighborhood, primary source, and also attended means the second source. The first source of language was the children in the neighborhood. At the same time, she also attended public kindergarten of 2 hours every day. This was the second place where she was learning something from. Obviously, school she will be learning something from. So first she learned from children. Also, she attended the school. So that played an important role, also played an important role. And we are on 73. Air balloons. The main development has been carried out by 𝗪𝗂𝗺𝗁𝗁 and his team at Princeton University in the US in collaboration with the United States Navy. Main development has been done by these persons at these places. What is the development about? We don't know. Yet there is little resemblance between these crewed vehicles and a modern scientific balloon, which has now become an important tool. So these vehicles, we have to find out something of the past they must have talked about, because they are comparing it with a modern scientific balloon. The stratoscope flights of 959 concerned mainly with studies of the sun were remarkably successful. So some kind of studies means obviously there would be some people who would have done some research. So they say it was successful. Hot air balloons date back to the year 1783, and within a few months of the first flight, a French scientist Charles went up 2 miles in a free balloon. So this would be the first sentence because it is complete, and also it gives us the topic that we are talking about, hot air balloons. So hot air balloons date back to 1783, and then this person went up 2 miles. Then we'll say, so these were in a free balloon, he went 2 miles up. Then we are talking about some studies which were successful. We are talking about a development. But why are we talking about development is because of this sentence that we say, yet there is little resemblance between these crude vehicles and modern scientific balloons. So these crude vehicles mean the previous balloon that was used in 1783 and the modern balloon that we have. So these means referencing to this free balloon and then comparing it with a modern scientific balloon, which is important too. So there is little resemblance means very less similarity. And why? Because there has been a major development carried out by this person and his team at this university. And then maybe they're explaining the what did they do exactly. The stratoscope flights of 959 concerned mainly with the studies of the sun were remarkably successful. So this is their development that they have explained, because otherwise it does not fit anywhere else. So they say the main development means something positive would have happened. And this sentence also, fourth sentence, tells us that there's something positive, successful studies that they were doing. So that is how it can be linked together. And we have 74. True and false. His very concepts, who is this person, of the true and false will still have reference to his particular traditional custom. So as we know, still is important. His very customs, we need to find concepts, we need to find out the name of the person. No man ever looks at the world with pristine eyes. So no man would be generally about human beings. No human being looks at the world with pristine eyes. Even in his philosophical probing, he cannot go beyond these stereotypes. Even is important. He sees it edited by a definite set of customs and institutions and ways of thinking. So what is it here and he? So because we don't have the name of any individual, that means he is being referred to the general human being, which is given in the second sentence. So that will be the first sentence. At least we know we're talking about the human being. No man ever looks at the world with pristine eyes. He sees it means the world, obviously, because here we are talking about looking at the world. That will be second. He sees it edited by a set of customs, institutions, and ways of thinking. And then this is how we now have these stereotypes. So what are these stereotypes? Is the customs, institutions, and the ways of thinking that we have talked about, because stereotypes tells us that it has to be plural, more than one. Stereotypes actually means that the things that affect our thinking process. We have lots of customs like rules, rituals, traditions to follow, and whatever we are taught after our birth, we start looking at the world in the same way. We never watch it irrespective of all those things. That is with pristine eyes, with completely uninfluenced. So we say that no man ever looks at the world with completely uninfluenced eyes. We always see it edited, means we think it according to how we are taught, how our customs, how our institutions, like religious institutions, educational institutions, or the societal institutions, they they teach us and the ways of thinking. So we cannot go beyond these stereotypes, means these customs, institutions, and ways of thinking. And in the end, we'll say that his very concepts of the true and false will still have. So this is talking about will still means whatever is there will still remain in the future. So will still, we obviously will talk about what presently we have, and then we'll say we'll still have reference to his particular traditional customs. And this is 74, 75, which is Turkey. That's where you will find lake so salty. So that's where means we are talking about a place where we'll find lake so salty that the only bugs able to live there are species that could probably survive on Mars as well. So name of a planet. If you want to visit Mars, visit Turkey. So here we have a lot of places. If you want to go to Mars, you can go to Turkey. General sentence, no references. They are hopeful. So who is hopeful? That studying some of them will yield useful insights into the kinds of biology that could help microbes exist on Mars or other potentially habitable planets and moons. For that reason, microbiologists in Turkey, so who are they? Here we have people, have surveyed the array of species that inhabit the 𝗳𝗂𝗀𝗪𝗏 and 𝗂𝘂𝗺𝗃 lakes. So here, the first sentence would be the general one. We are talking about if you want to visit Mars, visit Turkey. And then these are the places. So that's why it will be that's where the place. The Turkey. In Turkey is where you will find lakes so salty. Then they and microbiologists, the pair would be microbiologists will come first, and then we'll refer to them saying they. So clear hints, we have to look at where, means we have to talk about place before that. They means we have to talk about people before that. That is why microbiologists come first and they come second. 𝗳76, vegetarian. And this talks about this diet is not only unattractive. So this diet means we'll talk about some like vegetarian diet, non-vegetarian diet, vegan diet, and all those types. This diet is not only unattractive, but also may cause nutritional imbalance if not managed well. So we have to talk about some diet before this. Restaurants and school cafeteria adjust and amend their menus to adapt to this special diet. So again, this special diet, and we are referencing to again. And also we're talking about the menus of restaurants and school cafeterias. Menus in all of these places. So these places, we have to talk about the places before, can be the restaurants and school cafeterias, have become more balanced in nutrients and also attract those who are non-vegetarians. These developments, improvements won't succeed without the effort of vegetarians. So these developments, improvements means you're talking about some developments. Vegetarians do not eat meat or fish in their diet. General sentence, so that will come first, means this is the diet we are explaining. So we say vegetarians do not eat meat or fish in their diet. This diet means the diet which we talked about here. So this diet is not only unattractive, but also may cause nutritional imbalance if not managed well. So now we say first was vegetarian, this was the diet. Then we say this diet, and then we'll further narrow down to this special diet. So we'll say restaurants and school cafeterias adjust to this special diet. And then obviously we'll say these places, means the restaurants and cafeterias. And once we have done all the discussion, and we'll say these improvements. Improvements is like we talked about the amendment in the menus and balancing of nutrients and attracting even non-vegetarians. So all these developments, that is why they've written developments also. Developments and improvements won't succeed without the effort of vegetarians. So clear hints were, one is first you mention the diet, then you say this diet, further narrow down to this special diet, or you can say these places cannot come unless and until you talk about the places. So that also tells us that restaurants and cafes has to come before, and then you say these places, and in the end you say all these developments won't succeed. And the last one, number 77, is about Wittgens. For example, so example rule will apply here. In Papua New Guinea, maybe a place, because in means in that place, a lot of official business is conducted in 𝗂𝗃. TP capital means this is the name. Official business is conducted in, should be a language. In some areas, so some areas is general, and then we can give example of one particular area. This is how example works. So in some areas, the standard chosen may be a variety that originally had no native speakers in that country. So native speakers tells us that we're going to talk about language. And this is a complete sentence. 𝗂𝗃𝗀 is a variety of a language that developed for some practical purpose. So this is definition of 𝗂𝗃𝗀. This language is now used by over 1 million. So this language means this cannot be the first sentence. Is now used by 1 million people, but it began many years earlier as a kind of contact language called 𝗂𝗃𝗀. This is where we have introduced 𝗂𝗃𝗀. So we cannot put definition first because we have a sentence which is introducing the term. So first the term will be introduced, then it is defined. An example cannot come first. So what are we left with is only one sentence which says in some areas this happens. So in some areas, and then we will give example of one area because it is a rule. Example comes right after the explanation. So we give example in this particular place, a lot of business is conducted in 𝗂𝗃. And this, after that, we have called 𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗀, introduction, and then the definition. So introduction comes before definition, like we did before. Introduction comes before explanation. Introduction comes before the definition that is being applied, and the example rule. First, you have to say in some areas generally, and then you give example of one particular area about the concept. So these this is the last question. And I hope this would be helpful. Please try noting down the hints along with and using those hints when you will be solving the other questions in the portal. If you will have all these discussions written down with you, that will help you to not forget or not skip anything when you will be solving other questions. And that's all for this video. We hope this would be helpful, and we'll be coming back with a lot more things for you in the coming videos. Till then, take care, keep practicing, and we hope that you get your results very soon. All the very best.